Good evening, welcome back. We are here again for another live question and answer session on Subarus. So anything Subaru related, modifications, tuning, problems, self-tuning, it says along the bottom, ECU related, fault finding, basically anything Subaru. So as far as I'm aware, this is the only one of these that exists on the internet. So if you've got a Subaru or you're interested in Subarus, then this is the place to be. We're on, I think it's episode, 45 now. So generally these last for about an hour. I haven't got anything pre-prepared. Just fire your questions at me. I will do my absolute very best to answer them as honestly as I can. The sessions normally get quite busy towards the end. So if you've got questions, put a cue at the beginning of it so I can actually see that it's a question and get your question in early, because you stand a very good chance of getting it answered then. Towards the end, they can get a bit lost in the melee of, or the avalanche of comments or questions. So yeah, anything Subaru related, let me know. I can see we got a lot of the usual people from all over the walls, all over the world. So yeah, hi Neil. Yeah, how did the Fozzie do on the rollers? You will see on Saturday morning. That's videoed, and I will be editing that tomorrow, or hopefully editing it. I think the raw footage is about an hour long, so I'm going to try and trim it down as much as I can. There's quite a lot of detail in there that I might kind of split that off and keep that for the Academy members, but I haven't quite made my mind up yet on that one. But yeah, a lot of filming, but I won't spoil the punchline. You'll have to watch the video, I'm afraid. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, I met a guy yesterday. He was having problems with fuel cut on his car. So of course he asked Facebook groups, because where else are you going to get a proper answer? Based on the information that he got from the Facebook groups, he changed the O2 sensor, the MAF sensor, the MAP sensor, all 4 coil packs, all 4 plugs, the boost solenoid, and even the turbo. And then I met him yesterday. I said, you've probably replaced an awful lot of things that you didn't need to. Why don't you just bring it to a specialist and get them to look at it? Because what it was a Hawkeye WRX, and he put a decal on it, and it was just over boosting. It just needs a map. So I think what he said is he'd spent about £2,000 on all the bits that the Facebook groups told him that he needed, and it was definitely going to be. And it was none of them. It was just the fact that it wasn't set up for the mods that are on the car. So, expensive lesson. Ask an expert. I did point him in the way of my live Q&A sessions and said, if you ever get any questions, bring them on here and I'll answer them, for free. So, yeah, hopefully that will help him or other people. Cold Inverness. Yeah, it's going to be cold up there. Right, hi Kellen. Right, let's do a question. Let me get rid of that little ticker that's going across the bottom. Right, can you do launch control on the standard ECU? On a standard 2001 onwards ECU, yes, it is possible to do that. Even from sort of basic things like just adding it into the standard sort of map setup, or by using Cabra if it's on a 16-bit ECU, or Mert mod or Dime mod on a 32-bit ECU. But yeah, it is possible. It is not quite full launch control, depending on how far down that road you go with its with Cabra and Dime mod and Mert mod. They are better, but they're not quite the same as like a Link launch control or a Cyvex launch control. But they do a pretty decent job of actually making launches more consistent. So depending on what you use in the car for, it may well be just easy to put that onto the standard map. Right, okay, it's on a Forester XT 2006. I'm sure the patches do exist to do that on that ECU. Message me in Discord, and I'll dig out the patch for it to actually add that in. It'll be easy. Right. Okay, I had a question from Steve. Right, I don't know whether he's online at the moment, but this was posted just before the session started. What do you think is best out of a Link G4X, a Cyvex S6 or an Alcatec? The car will be used for rallying. It depends on which car it is. If it's a classic, then the Link or the Cyvex will be a better ECU. They've got login facilities on there that the Alcatec hasn't got. So if you're trying to sort of download data from it after the end of a rally stage, then you're not going to have that facility in Alcatec. Also, depending on whether you've got the dongle with it, you may not even be able to get it mapped. Because it's almost impossible to get the patches to map the ECUs now. So unless you've got the dongle and the lead and the software, or if you've got the dongle and you can get it to me and I can map it, then that's not a problem. But a Link or a Cyvex would be the far better choice. You've got far more safety features in there. You've got far more flexibility of how you set it up. And it's they're a more expensive ECU. So they're going to be better. They're more advanced. The Alcatec is very basic, but it does a wonderful job. And probably for a road car, I'd say Alcatec will work fine. But for a rally car, I would probably go with something where you've got a bit more control over things and a bit of data logging as well. Right. Right. Opinion on best alignment setup for camber and toe. I went through my settings that I like. It is quite a personal thing, sort of alignment setup. Oh, excuse me, gotta sneeze. No, it's gone away. It's quite a personal thing, alignment setup. And the settings that I like to use on my car for the road is about 1.5 negative camber on the front. About 1 negative camber at the back, and absolutely 0 toe front and rear, so that it's pretty neutral for braking and accelerating. I've seen people set them up with toe out at the front, and they are incredibly twitchy if you do that. And braking with cambered roads, it's not to my liking. I've tried quite a lot of these things, toe out, toe in, but for me, nice neutral handling with just 0 toe front and rear, 1.5 negative on the front, 1 negative at the back, and as much caster as you can get. Caster is your friend. Yeah, that's a very good point there, Callan. Yeah, as far as those ECU choices, if you're mapping it yourself, then it's whatever you're feeling comfortable with. If it's you're getting the car mapped by someone else or tuned by someone else, go with the suggestion of your tuner. Yeah. Yeah, Alcatec is something that's only really, it's a UK ECU. It was probably about 15 years ago that was brought out, just to kind of give a basic set of features like high boost, low boost, and a few bits like that. And it fitted the bill, adequately for most cars, but as soon as you get more advantage or more advanced on the requirements, then they're kind of not very good. Plus, the guy who ran the company is now he's a nightmare to get hold of. In fact, he's impossible to get hold of. It's impossible to get ECUs repaired. It's impossible to get access patches for them. So it's not an ECU you can get hold of anymore. Hello from the Netherlands. I've got no idea how to pronounce that name. Sitsa. But yeah, we have people on here from all over the world. It amazes me every week or every session that I do. You know, South America, Canada, North America, New Zealand, Australia, Israel, Europe. I don't think we've had anyone from China or Japan yet, but I'm not quite sure. They might not be able to understand what I'm saying. Who knows? Right. Right. How does Maha LPS dyno compare with dyno dynamics? Can it display AFR graph? Pretty much all the dynos that I've seen have got the ability to have a wideband sensor display on the screen, whether that be dyno dynamics, doesnt, Maha, what are the other ones? Dynojet. What was the hub dyno one? But they've all got the ability to do it. Whether the dyno operator has the wideband and has it displayed on the screen at the time, it's really down to how they set it up. But I always like to have it on the screen because it's pretty important for me when I'm mapping. But they'll all do it. The Maha dynos that I've used in the past have always had it. Ooh, TGV delete on a 2.5. What power gain would you typically expect to see? Not a huge amount, Tom, but what you are doing is you're getting rid of something that could fail and is likely to fail at some point. So personally, I would do it just on the basis that it's improving the reliability. You'd probably get a few, 3, 4 maybe. Sometimes a little bit more, but it varies. It's difficult to do a before and after with the same car and the same dyno on the same day because it is a pain in the arse to actually take the TGVs out. So, typically it's about 4 or 5 hours to take those off on a road car where you got aircon and stuff like that. So, not a huge amount. I wouldn't do it from a power point of view, but from a reliability point of view, definitely worthwhile. It's my pleasure. I really enjoy these sessions. It keeps me on my toes and it makes me understand what things people are interested in knowing about. So then I try and create a video that covers those, or at least try when time allows. Because doing videos, it's like videoing the car that I'm mapping. It kind of doubles the time that it takes to map it, because videoing and like making sure that I've got a plan for what I want to cover and what the actual point of the video is. So yeah, it adds a huge amount of time, and then there's the editing that takes many hours. I am getting quicker at that, or maybe a little bit lazier at it, but yeah, it's time consuming. But I love doing the live sessions because it's an hour on here and that's it, it's done. All right. All right. Okay, Travis does things. I did a thing for a bolt-on STI daily driver with flex fuel up to 70% ish ethanol, how much timing is too much, when it starts detting or when the power starts coming down. With 70% ethanol, you would you'd pretty easily be able to get to MBT, so the maximum power that you could get from the engine, and adding more time in would actually bring it down. I've seen that a couple of times where you add, because the fuel is very difficult for it to sort of detonate on, you can actually add more time in, and all you're doing is adding more time in, and the actual power, when you see it on the dyno, is coming down. So if you're trying to get to like the peak power or the peak setup on that sort of percentage ethanol, then I'll do it on a dyno, and just compared to normal fuel, you're probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 or 7 degrees extra ignition timing, depending on what the compression ratio is of the car. And you want to, once you've added that 4 or 5 degrees, add a degree, see whether the power's gone up. If the power's still going up, then assuming it's debt free, then add another degree and see whether the power goes up again, and so on and so forth. How much is relative. If it's a 2 litre, then relative, absolute numbers won't mean anything to you, but it's quite a lot more for 70% ethanol than it would be with just normal whatever octane fuel that you have. Right, Jamie, about swapping a new EJ207 short block. If I get ARP head studs, do you use ARP or OEM torque specs? I always use the ARP torque specs. Certainly for putting together a new short block with ARP studs, really easy. 30, 60, 90. Go through the process of the 6 studs. Not seen any difficulties in torquing them up, not seen any issues with head gaskets or anything like that beyond that point. ARP have been making head studs since God was a boy, so I would trust what they do. OEM torque settings are for the head bolts, and they are very, very different. The S210 or whatever it is. Oh, what a shame it's got a CVT in there. It would have been a perfect opportunity to put a DSG type gearbox in there. But yeah, annoying. It kind of put me off that. Not that I could get one in the UK yet anyway, but or even afford it. But it's just why put a CVT in there? It's the wrong gearbox. Right. What turbo would you put on your Forester? I am keeping that entirely standard, but keeps the very fast response. Well, the standard turbo is a TF035 on mine. The VF52 is a very decent upgrade, I am told. I've mapped a SH5 that had the VF52 on it, and it was very nice indeed. Very spooly still, not quite as spooly as the TF, but it's kind of limited at that point by the top mount intercooler because it's tiny and very thin and not very efficient. With a proper top mount and a VF52, which may at some point I may do that to mine. It's really hard to not modify Subarus. I find it very difficult. For VF52, that would be the recommendation. Callan. They will suffer from that, but yeah. Highlight, mate. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, bring it down, give me a shout, message me, and we'll get that sorted. Yeah, or as Neil said, TD04 hybrid. The 2.5 XT, which I think was the Australian market version, the SH5, that had a TD04 on it. So that's got slightly more potential than the TF035. I think I'm kind of at the limit of what the TF035 can chuck out. It's a tiny turbo. So TD04 or TD04 hybrid or the VF52, good options. Hi Simon. Yes, I am very well. Albeit a little bit unshaven, but there we go. When giving the throttle a bootful with my mate, the brake warning light came on. Oh, that's weird. Brake warning or brake fluid warning or pad warning or just the handbrake warning light. I've never seen that. Handbrake one I could probably understand if the handbrake's kind of moving a little bit. Brake fluid one I could probably understand if the fluid level was low. But anything else? No, I'm not seeing that unless you've got really absolutely mullered wheel bearings. But I think even then it wouldn't do it. I would certainly investigate it. Probably go down the electrical route first rather than mechanical. Right, rotated turbo setup, good for 550 to 600 and good spool up. For 550 to 600 on a decent engine, on good quality fuel, something like a GT35 or equivalent to the size turbos. But 3582 is a nice turbo for that. If you're on lower quality fuel, then I think you need to be sort of looking at octane boosters or alcohol content to actually get those. Oh, head gaskets and studs did you have on your time attack Hawkeye? I had 14mm lateral performance studs because they have the hex on the top of them and they're much easier to seat at the bottom of the bores than the ones that don't. Head gaskets, I went through lots of different types from RCM to Cometic, but the RCM ones were probably the better ones. I just had to remount the holes for the head gasket for the head studs. At the time they didn't do the 14mm head gasket, so yeah, it was lateral performance 14mm head studs and RCM head gaskets. Okay, as Mel says, yeah, brake fluid level, low check, yeah, or a leak. Yeah, okay. Right, first track day with a new expensive engine is coming out. What channels do you recommend to data log? Main goal is keeping the engine alive, so anything to look out for. I would build it up during the day. If it's the first time out with the engine, then obviously don't give it full send in the first session. Take it out, do a couple of laps, come back in, check the fluid levels, check the everything's working and plugged in and what have you. But it depends how you set it up from a map point of view for safety features. But I would certainly be sort of data logging RPM, manifold pressure, boost, if that's, you know, a separate thing. Coolant temperature, oil pressure, if you've got those coming into the ECU, lambda, if you've got that going into the ECU, and depending on how the ECU set up as to like knock levels and whether there's any issues. But certainly take it up step at a time during the day, and actually pull the data logs off and be patient with it rather than trying to rush it to, you know, full session 20 odd laps and blasting it around and then wondering why your engine's died. Okay, L8X, hello. Would put in an EJ207 block and an EJ205 be a good idea for budget build? Goal is 400 horsepower, give or take. Yes, very good. The standard out of the crate EJ207 from the factory with the factory crank, factory rods, factory pistons, you know, they'll do 450 horsepower pretty much all day long. If it was me, I wouldn't be building a forged engine for anything less than 500 horsepower on a 2 litre. The standard factory EJ205 or 207 will do that, no problem. Most I've seen is 640 on one. So yeah, it's a really good cheap option. And building those with your old heads, relap the valves, space it all up properly, new head studs, gaskets, new oil pump, blah blah blah, and it's a good build, and it's quiet. It's not like a forged build. Right, hi Neil, how's the Cybex Tiny Dash test coming along? Not so great, really. Yeah, I've been having a couple of issues with that, and yeah, doing some legwork to set it up how it should be set up, because at the moment it does not work and it is not sellable, certainly for Subaru customers. Thoughts on the Borg-Warner EFR? It's a good turbo, but for daily, what sort of power would you want for a daily? It depends on the power targets that you're after. But, for a daily driver, for me, a daily driver would be, you know, certainly less than 400 horsepower, and you know, the VF turbos, you know, the VF400 or a hybrid VF48, something along those lines, will do that for a lot cheaper. Alright, what do you recommend to do to the car before I take your car to the Nürburgring? Spec seat, oil cooler to fit. Absolutely make sure that you've got no potential for leaks at all whatsoever, be that coolant, be that oil, brake fluid, whatever, because you put any of that down on the track, the accident that happens behind you is your fault, and they actively pursue that. So absolutely make sure there is no leaks. It cannot overheat, so make sure that the cooling system is perfect. You've got no dodgy hoses. If it's your first trip over there, you're going to be braking an awful lot more than you need to be, so take a spare set of brake pads as it get you home. Take a couple of spare sensors, a crank sensor, cam sensor, just in case, you know, the heat gets the better of them on the day. But don't treat it like a track day. Treat it like a nice fast road drive, and you'll be going around with your indicator on the right, and just, yeah, have fun. It is an awesome place. Right. Well, the issues with the Tiny Dash on the Forester STI, it does not read OBD data, and effectively that is useless. So yeah, need to resolve that one. Right, how am I coming along with questions? Right, have I missed anything so far? Right. Bum, bum, bum. Ooh, I have to be honest and say I don't know, and I never trust fully what other people tell me as far as, you know, oh, yeah, we got it to 500 horsepower until I've done it myself, and I haven't really got the inclination to go silly power on this car. I think it will handle 350 reasonably easily, but going beyond that, you might have an issue where the bores start going slightly oval and it uses a bit more oil than it ought to. I would certainly limit it to 350. 350 seems to be quite a conservative estimate for what things can handle standard. Yeah, I know. It's really annoying. There is a different set of OBD protocols. I am working with them to try and resolve it. Certainly with the JDM stuff. With the UK stuff, it's pretty straightforward. But with the JDM stuff, not all the OBD protocols are the same. So I need to try and get them to give me a bit of time to actually dig that data out of the ECU stream. Yeah, 4EAT transmission. I've seen issues on these at about 350. It's the torque converter that starts to object quite strongly. Some people have taken the gearboxes beyond that, but it depends how desperate you are for the power compared to, you know, some power and reliability. I probably wouldn't recommend going above 350 on a 4-speed. Yes, I know. I've had these arguments with them, but it's at the moment it's kind of priorities for them, and yeah, I want it working. It will be working at some point, but it's just not working yet. Works for everything else, like for talking to a Cyvex ECU, easy. Talking to a Link G4, easy. Talking to basically any ECU that can output a data stream, CAN bus data stream, easy. But JDM stuff on the Subaru, not quite so easy. Have I mapped any precision hybrid turbos from RCM? Yes, loads. Did a RCM 600 yesterday. Really good, really nice turbos. The RCM 600 isn't a 600 horsepower turbo on normal fuel, so I would just ignore the moniker, the 600 moniker, compared to the RCM 500. It's not another 100 horsepower. It is a bit more, but yeah, not another 100. certainly not on normal fuel. Right, safe power on a daily J25 TD04 turbo, standard top mount. The turbo is going to be the limit, and that's going to be limiting it about 290 on that, 280 to 290 on 100 octane. Engine will be fine at that if you can keep it debt free. You shouldn't really have a problem with intake temperatures, I would have thought, apart from the height of summer there. So I would have thought sort of high 200s is going to be fine for you. Right, hi Mashike, hi mate. Right, how are we doing? Any more questions while I'm just having a slurp just to wet my throat? Okay. I have no idea. Why do they go on about high stall torque converters? It's probably for launching, so that they can, sit there with the revs up and a foot and a brake for a quarter mile. But I don't know. Ask an American. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Hi Rob. Twin scroll manifold and up pipe should you go for? For yours, Rob, I would stick with the standard OEM twin scroll manifold. If you can't find one, then the RCM sort of unequal or equal length twin scroll setup works great. And yes, you'll need to take the turbo off and the downpipe. Yeah, you'll need to do that anyway. How and when did your love for Subarus come about? Right. I used to co-drive rallying back in the late 80s, 1988 or 88 or 89, did the Peugeot GTI Challenge, and that was the year after Richard Burns and Robert Reid won it. And part of their prize was to be supported by Peugeot, but to do that they had to sort of mentor people within the next season's sort of intake. So Richard and Robert sort of mentored us. Robert Reid's dad was our service crew, or one of our service crew, and kind of from there on, when Richard then developed and went through into the Subaru world, and in the mid 90s, and Colin McRae with the legacy, and it was just my background was rallying and motorsport, and the love for Subaru came from there. And in 2001 I got my first Subaru, and I've had them ever since. How easy is it to set up for running NOS? It depends depends what ECU you've got. If you haven't got an ECU that's capable of running it, then you've got to go with a wet system. So you'd have a trigger to activate the nitrous based on the throttle position. Quite fun, but it's very much on or off. Ideally, to to do it with something like a Cyvex or a Link is you have a dry system whereby you can run the extra fuel needed for the nitrous through the existing injectors, and then you're just controlling one solenoid, and you can 3D map that based on whatever your requirements are for how much extra power you want. Running it through the Cyvex, which is how I ran mine with the Cyvex, I could blend it in so that it was actually quite easy to drive with it, because another 250 pounds-foot of torque coming on in quarter of a second can be quite scary. But if your ECU is capable of running it, then run it through the ECU. It would be much safer. Nicest drive I had as a road trip. In the Subaru down. Driving over to Nürburgring several times. That's a really good road trip, because the roads around the Nürburgring, not just on the track, are amazing. It's beautiful scenery. Driving the Forester STI down to Portugal and northern Spain. Was that last year? Year before? That was amazing, because the roads in northern Portugal were stunning and empty. My old Bug-Eye STI around Wales, before the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and the 40-mile-an-hour over the Black Mountains. That was a lovely drive. Victor, will engine load be affected after changing the MAF scaling? Yes. If you're increasing the MAF values for any given voltage, then that will increase the load for that where the engine is. So it's going to increase the load. So it will then, presumably, depending on your ignition timing curve, it will add less ignition timing as well as more fuel. If you're reducing the MAF curve, that will reduce the load. It will add more ignition timing as well as leaning it out. So be very cautious about doing that. Did I just answer that question before? GT35X, be good on that. Yeah, I drove past Spa many times to go to the Nürburgring, but I'd never done a track day there. Did a track day at Hockenheim, a tourist day, which was absolutely scary as fuck. It was normally with a track day, you sort of 30-40 cars lined up and go out on track at the same time. This tourist foreign at Hockenheim, they lined, I think it was about 250 of us in the pits, 3 lines, and set us all out together. So we were 6 abreast coming down the main straight to the hairpin at the end. Horrific. Cars weaving in and out and everything. Yeah, amazing. Survived it. Some people didn't. But yeah, track days are addictive. Alright, any more questions? Right, let's switch that off. Right, I think we're kind of towards the end if the questions are coming out. But Subaru, my love of Subaru has been, as soon as Subaru was coming to rallying, I blagged a test drive of a Subaru STI at my local Subaru dealer when I was, I think, 22, and scared the crap out of the the car salesman. Obviously, I had no intention of buying one. I couldn't afford to buy one, but it was great fun. And from that point onwards, I had to have one as soon as I could. And when I started working for myself in whenever that was, 2000, 2001, actually no, it was a bit before that, 99. Yeah, it was my goal. So I did, and I've had them ever since. And you know, many of them. I've got 3 at the moment. Right, okay, I am going to call that a day. And yeah, I'll see you in the next live stream. There will be live streams next week, and there will be a video out Saturday morning. So, see you next time.